Welcome to the Radiate Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Christy Clemens Hoffman. Each week we will discuss tools, tips, and ways to radiate your best life ever, interviewing practitioners, authors, and luminaries to help you on your path. Wellness, joy, peace, abundance. What do you want to radiate? Hello, and welcome to the Radiate Wellness Podcast. Today, we radiate alchemy with Colm Holland, who has written a book, The Secret of the Alchemist, about his amazing and transformative experience with the book, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, which most of us have probably already read. If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably already someone who enjoys this book very much. The Secret of the Alchemist is, again, a new book that shows how to overcome the fears that stop you from reaching your dream, to find the true empowerment to take full control of your destiny, and to use magical steps of personal transformation to perform miracles, as well as to harness love to turn your greatest weakness into your most powerful strength. Colm, thank you so much for joining me today. It's such a pleasure to connect with you.
Hi, Christy. Hi, everybody. Lovely to be with you.
Lovely. And so you had your own experience with this book, The Alchemist.
Okay. Yes, I do. If you've got time for a quick story, I'll tell you a quick story.
Please, love stories.
So we need to go back in time. Once upon a time, in the year 1993, for those of you that were born before 1993, you'll remember it. Congratulations to those who weren't born in 1993 or before. You're much younger than we are. But Paulo Coelho, who wrote the book The Alchemist, and I've got a copy of it here. This is, for those of you who've seen that, this is my original one, looking a bit battered now over the years. So 27 years ago, Paulo Coelho was unheard of. He's a Brazilian author. He speaks Portuguese. He wrote in Portuguese. The book had been published twice in Brazil. It was a complete failure the first time. The second time around, it did quite well. And the company I worked for, the publishing company called HarperCollins, decided they were going to publish it in English. So it was translated not by Paulo, but by somebody else. And I was in charge of the books that were coming into Australia from the rest of the company. And it was late on a Friday afternoon, in the days before the internet, remember those? A pile of manuscripts arrived in the post. And the post guy dropped it on my desk, and I thought, oh, shall I? Oh, go on, I'll open it. I was almost ready to go home. So I opened it, and there was this amazing cover that I just couldn't resist. You should never judge a book by its cover, obviously, but I did. And it was purple. If you Google the original cover of The Alchemist, you'll see it just transformed my opinion of the book completely. And I thought, ooh, okay. So I broke all the rules, grabbed the manuscript, grabbed the cover, shoved it in my briefcase, and took it home for the weekend when I normally spend time with the kids. So Sunday afternoon, I remembered, after lunch, I remembered I've got this manuscript. I might read it. Okay, I'll give it a read. So I set up in the backyard in Sydney, Australia, which is where I lived at the time. And I started to read, thinking, I'll probably do my usual publisher skim read. You know, I'm a fast reader. I can do that really quickly. I did not skim read this book. This book almost took me over. It almost, dare I say, possessed me to the point that I was relishing every page, and I did not stop until I reached the very last page in a single sitting. And at that very end, something just in my heart said, this is going to be a bestseller, when nobody else in the company up to that point or previously, as far as Paulo tells me, had ever had that vision. And when I mean a bestseller, I mean number one bestseller globally. So did it? Yeah. Paulo, for a long time, held the Guinness Book of Records for the most books sold by a living author ever in history of the world, in any language. 85 plus million copies. It must be 86, 87 million by now. 70 different languages. So whatever wisdom or knowledge that I had on that Sunday afternoon became a reality quite quickly, and he became quite popular very quickly. My colleagues, by the way, weren't sure. I did my very best to convince them. I mean, normally I'd order 2,000 copies of a book like that in hardcover for Australia, first time, unknown author. But I rang on the Monday morning, I rang my colleague in California and I said, look, I want 20,000 and I think we need to print 200,000 at minimum. And let's forget hardcover, let's go straight to paperback because everybody's going to want this book. And he said, "Are you kidding? You know, are you drunk? You know, you don't normally be this. You know, this." I said, "No, I'm not drunk. Definitely not. Let's do it." And everybody eventually agreed with me. And then Paulo. So this is the really interesting, lovely ending to this story. Mm-hmm. Paulo heard about that conversation I had with the rest of my colleagues, and we invited him out to Australia, and he spoke in English at his very first Writers' Festival, which is in Adelaide, Australia, and the queue for people to sign, for him to sign a copy of the book that they just bought, went all the way round the block of the building, outside the building. There wasn't enough room in the building, and we'd never seen anything as publishers like this, and Paulo, of course, had never seen anything like this in his life, and that was really the beginning of this phenomenon around The Alchemist, and we'll talk about why it's been such a popular book. But anyway, on the way home, he said, "Look, I really want to thank you, Colm, and I'd like to take you and your wife and the publicity manager out who's done such a fantastic job for a meal." And we went out for this meal in Sydney. It was glorious, and we were just having a fabulous time. And normally it would be packed with senior management. So normally the managing director would have to be there, but Paulo wasn't, a top drawer author at the time. He wasn't that known. It wasn't like, he's the best-selling author that HarperCollins have ever had, which he is now. But we sat there, and he said, "I want to give you guys a gift." So he looked at my colleague Naomi, and he said, "Look, here's a little box that I asked Christina, my wife, his wonderful wife Christina was there." And I asked God what I should give you, and they said I should give you this. So she was very nervous. She opened the box, and there was this beautiful diamond dress ring. Not cheap. It was something else. And she was in tears, and we were all clapping because she deserved it. She did a great job. And then he looked at me, and he said, "Colm, I asked God." And what I should give you as well, and I'm thinking, yeah, gold Rolex. Oh, how shallow am I? Isn't that terrible? But that just indicates the state of my soul at the time. It hadn't always been as bad as that, but it was. Yeah, that was where I was at. So, and he said, "Well, I did ask God." And he didn't pull a gold Rolex out of his pocket. What he said God told him to do was to spend a day of his time doing his alchemy magic on my behalf.
Oh my, that's even more precious than a diamond ring.
Yeah, and in my head, I was thinking, so I'm not going to get a gold Rolex then? Is that the deal? So I said, "Well, that's great, Paulo." And he said, "Yes." And then he just looked me in the eye. He's got this way. If any of you have met Paulo, you'll just know. And he gets this look, and he looked me in the eye, and he wasn't joking. And he looked me in the eye, and he said, "So I have asked the universe to give you whatever you want in life. The only thing is, you just need to decide what you want." And then it all went quiet. And I'm thinking, well, right now, the gold Rolex would be really cool, but that wasn't what he meant.
No.
And I remember driving home, and then he was off, and he had a plane to catch. So he had to go back to Brazil. It was all over. It was like this magic evening. The spell was broken. I was back to ground level, back in the car, driving home late at night. And I said to my wife, "Well, what do you think of that?" Then I was really hoping for a cold Rolex, and she said, "Well, it's not what I think, is it, Colm?" She said, "It's what you think about that's going to matter." Well, immediately after that, there was I have to confess, and I'll just be honest about this, that when I met Paulo, and during that period of time, I was feeling very discontent with me. I was feeling discontent with me. I had this gnawing feeling. I'd been quite successful. I'd done well in my publishing career, but I had this gnawing feeling that I just wasn't living the life that I was meant to live, that I wasn't really participating in life to the fullest that life really wanted me to participate in. And one of the things I really wanted to do was start my own business. I really felt I had a gift for that I could be good at that, but the fear of stepping forward out of my comfort zone at that middle-aged point. I was 40 years old at the time. And I was so nervous that I would wreck my family's financial position, that I would be a failure at it, that it was too great a risk, and that I would just wreck everybody's lives, and we'd end up homeless or something. It took me several years, but when I met Paulo, when I read the book, The Alchemist, something happened. That magic that he did for me, somehow I found a new boldness, a courage that I hadn't. And I began to study the book. And in my book, The Secret of the Alchemist, I reveal all the things that I studied and discovered in Paulo's book. And believe you me, most of us, when we read it, we miss 90% of what's in that book. But I was getting hungry. I wanted to know what is the secret in this book of the Alchemist. Why is it so popular? Why has it gone on to sell millions and millions of copies? There's something, whatever it is, I want it, and I want it in my life. I want it in my life.
Yeah.
And so as I began to study it, I began to apply the principles of it. So the dream of Santiago, the shepherd boy, those of you that have read the fable, but The Alchemist, by the way, is just a folk fable written, original by Paulo, but it's full of lots of arguments within 6 months. Sorry, yes.
6 months. In fact, could you kind of recap the story of The Alchemist for those who may not have read it?
Yeah, sure. So this is very relevant to this point because it's all about having a dream. There was a shepherd boy in a time not really mentioned as it is in folk fables. He had his sheep and he went to sleep one night in an abandoned chapel in a field in Andalusia, which is in part of Spain. And in that dream that he has, a child comes to him and tells him, Santiago, the boy, that he has this treasure that belongs to him that is buried near the pyramids in Egypt. And all he has to do is go to the pyramids and he will find the treasure. And the child leads him to where the treasure is buried. And just before he discovers where the treasure is buried, he wakes up. So he doesn't see where the treasure is. And this happens twice. And it so disturbs him, it so awakens a curiosity in him that he eventually decides to make the trip. And he meets lots of interesting people, some of them magical people along the way. But I'm not spoiling anything for anybody here, because if you read my book, it spoils it for you anyway. But just to say that the whole fable is a metaphor for what Carl Jung would have called, inner transformation. It's a metaphor for finding the true self. It's overcoming the fears within ourselves. It is about listening to our dreams, but it's also about having ambitions. We are so conditioned quite often when we read and talk about spirituality that it's almost having an ambition to be successful or to live well in all the full meaning of wellness, spiritually, in soul, in body, and in mind. That desire, according to the story of the Alchemist, is actually given to us by the universe. The universe wants us to live that life, and if we're not living that life, if we're not living what the Alchemist calls your true destiny or your personal legend, those of you that have followed Paulo Coelho will know that he coined that phrase. Your personal legend. If you're not living your personal legend, then on the basis that we're only consciously, knowingly having one life, than the one we're in right now, this is the one we're conscious of, then we are missing out. It is passing us by, and there is only one person in the universe who can fix that, and that's us.
Yes.
So I made a choice. So I studied Santiago. I looked at the people who he came across, and we can talk a bit more about that, Christy, in a moment. But I made that choice. I said, no, I'm going to go after my heart's desire, and I'm going to start my own business. So I resigned. I resigned my position. I went out, and within 2 or 3 years, I ended up founding the largest digital advertising agency in Australia. We had 85 staff. We ran the 2000 Olympics online. Toyota was a major client. I mean, there was a long list. And I remember going to the bathroom one day it must have been in the second year, and we were being so successful. And I just stared at myself in the mirror, and I just asked myself that question that we should ask ourselves: is, how did you get to this point? What were the stages? And as I looked in the mirror, I could pinpoint that evening with Paulo, and I thought, yes, there was a magic event did take place. It wasn't just mind over matter. It isn't just that I've begun to think more positively that I can do stuff. Something else happened there. And so I went back again to The Alchemist, and my book is the fruit of that. And what I discovered, shock, horror, I hope everybody, you're all sitting down, that there is a thing called alchemy.
Mm-hmm.
And Paulo is a disciple of alchemy, if you want to call it that. You can't belong to alchemy. It's not a religion, by the way. I'm terribly sorry, everybody. There's nobody to give 10% of your income to. That nobody's going to tell you what to do. It's a very individualistic approach to life. But it was a new metaphor for me at a time when I needed a new metaphor, when I tried old religious metaphors and I tried to put myself through various belief systems that didn't really deliver. And it made sense of the things that had happened in my spiritual journey before discovering Alchemist. And it certainly gave me a much stronger framework to pursue after I'd read The Alchemist. And it's all boils down to just two things. Mm-hmm. So alchemy is about personal transformation, and it's about transforming to a place of true empowerment. And so I define what personal transformation is, I define what true empowerment is, and how alchemy, even the ancient alchemists, had a formula which they hid and secretly in code and symbols. Some of you may have studied alchemy in that regard, and most of us have heard of the Philosopher's Stone. Most of us have heard of the Elixir of Life. Not many of us possibly have heard of the Emerald Tablet, but that's just the tip of the iceberg of symbols and symbolism that the alchemists over the centuries, going back 5,000 years, And so we owe a debt of gratitude. Well, I certainly, and most of us owe a debt of gratitude to two people who have revealed that process that the alchemist ran. One was Sir Isaac Newton. Mm-hmm. Sir Isaac Newton was an alchemist, and he collected as many ancient manuscripts as he could, and they're now in a library in Cambridge University in England, if you ever want to go and visit those books.
Love to.
Yeah, and the other guy was Professor Carl Jung, of course, who was also an avid student of alchemy and wrote on the subject at great length and based his psychoanalysis theories mostly on alchemy principles of transformation. What he discovered, and this has been one of the pivot points for me, is that alchemy is all about, in the symbolism, transmuting lead into gold, transmuting something which is deemed to be ugly and of no precious value into something that is beautiful, gold, and which is extremely valuable. And that is a metaphor for our weakest self, our despised self, which is the lead, being transformed into our greatest treasure, which is the gold. And the alchemists went through, the true alchemists of ancient times were the first to engage in inner transformation. And what they believed they were calling on, what they drew upon within the universe, within all of matter, is a thing called the prima materia.
Yes.
Which is that force that holds everything together. This chair I'm sitting on, this body I'm in, the wall behind me, the air I breathe, the stars outside, the trees, all of those things contain the prima materia. And the big breakthrough discovery for me, and this is what sort of makes my book different from anything you've probably read about alchemy, is that prima materia has a character. It has a personality, and that personality is unconditional love. Without knowing the power of unconditional love, there can be, in my experience, no transformation from lead into gold. I can't love my despised self, the self that I want to hide, that I put a mask up and try to live behind. So you won't see the weak me. I don't want you to see the weak me. Ironically, if I'm prepared to remove that mask, first of all to myself, and make that inner journey and face that weaker me, that despised me, the me that I hold no value to and I almost hate at times, if I'm prepared to allow love to embrace that me, then it will transform me, not into something else, but it will transform that weakness into something that is of real value to me and into everybody else. And in my book, I tell the story of how from the age of 18, I actually committed to a life of transformation. And when I met Paulo, he came in at a critical moment when I was probably about ready to give up.
Give up in what way?
I'd become self-satisfied. And Santiago, in the story of the Alchemist, and by the way, in my book, I do three things. I keep telling you the story of the Alchemist. So I'm constantly in the story saying, okay, so I've now reached this point in my story. Let's go and have a look at Santiago. Where is he up to? And one of my favorite bits is he arrives in Africa and he loses everything. Within hours of landing ashore, he gets robbed.
Yes.
He's very naive. So no sooner has he decided, metaphorically, to go down the road of transformation, using the alchemy metaphor as the route to take, which is why it's all happening in North Africa, folks. which is why he's on his way to the pyramids, because guess what? That's where alchemy started, in Alexandria, just up the road from the pyramid. Oh yeah, it's all in my book. I explain the whole thing. So if you don't know this, of course, you can just read The Alchemist and not even realize that this is all going on. So I uncover all of this for you. So it's all right. You don't have to go and work it out for yourself. I've done it. I've done the hard work, guys. And so when he arrived, so he's stripped of his whole security and everything that how the world worked or how he understood the world. It's all gone in an instant. And that's what happened to me.
Yes.
So when I began my transformation process, I discovered that when I tried to love unconditionally, when I tried to be a loving, caring kind of person, stuff within me would block that. And fears would arise to stop me moving forward and being courageous and ambitious, as I mentioned earlier. So I actually made a conscious decision to go and visit my unconscious. Beware, guys. I don't recommend you do it on your own.
Did you know that Radiate Wellness has a subscription-based premium content Facebook group? Think of it like the premium version of this free podcast. In this premium Facebook group, you can find great content like replays of online classes, meditations on angels, chakras, mindfulness, and more, guest speakers, mini classes, polls, plus you'll be the first to know of guests that we have scheduled for the podcast and can submit questions for them. You get all of this great content for one low monthly price, and the first month is half off. You can subscribe by going to radiatewellnesscommunity.com/shop. Click the subscriptions button and you're in. Also, while I have your attention, wherever you're listening to this free podcast, if you could just do us a couple of favors, please. One is go to hit the subscribe or follow button. Then you'll be notified of all of the episodes we have coming out each week. Also, please rate and review. It sounds really simple, but it helps us to grow our audience when people are looking for great podcasts. And when we grow our audience, we can do bigger and better things and bring you even more great guests. So please do those couple of things, and that will help us grow this audience and this podcast. Thank you so much for listening.
Christy, you've got an organization there full of wonderful, lovely people who are loving and caring, who can help people through this journey I'm talking about, correct?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay, people listening, as they say, don't try this at home. I don't recommend you do it on your own, because the unconscious, the reason why we don't go into the unconscious, it can be a pretty scary place. I mean, some of you know the story of Dante's Inferno and so on. Well, that's all a metaphor for the unconscious, and even Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung, of course, when they were dealing with their clients and patients, were surprised. It was a complete shock what would come out of the unconscious mind. So I decided that the only way forward for me was to go into the unconscious and do that. So somebody recommended a book called The Dark Night of the Soul. And I was a great reader at the time of a guy called Thomas Merton, a Catholic monk who adopted Buddhism as well, practices of Buddhism. And he wrote a terrific book about the dark night of the soul. And I was surrounded at the time by people who could support me. I was quite young. My family, I just had a very young family, and I'd been a very active high school teacher. I resigned from that and decided to go on this transformational journey. And it was hell. It was probably the worst year of my life.
Yes.
And I wanted to stop it several times, but I decided to hang in there. And so that has a name in alchemy. It's called the black phase. So in the principles of the chemistry of alchemy and the symbolism of the laboratory, when they've got the lead in the crucible and they start applying the heat to it, it melts down into a really black, murky, horrible substance. And that's what I found in my unconscious.
Oh, yes.
I found some pretty ugly things. One of the things I did find was a very angry young boy, actually. So I found an inner child who had been abused, and not physically, fortunately. I'm very blessed for that, and my heart goes out to anybody who was physically or sexually abused. What I'm talking about today, you may find would be of some assistance. But I was the original Harry Potter. My mother had epilepsy, and it was undiagnosed. So when I was a toddler, say 18 months, 2 years old, I only discovered this much later on in life when I was doing this work. And by the way, the alchemists call what I'm describing as the great work. And it is. This is not a walk in the park by any means. I was a real Harry Potter, so she used to protect me. So she'd know a fit was coming on, and she to protect me, she'd lock me in the cupboard under the stairs.
Oh no! Mm-hmm.
Which on the one hand was good because, all hell was breaking loose for her.
Right. But on the other, you had no idea what was going on or why you were locked away like that.
No, I had no idea.
How terrifying.
Yeah, and I buried it, though, like we all mostly do.
Right.
It was so traumatic that I separated from it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the fit was over, fortunately, eventually she was diagnosed and she had medication and it was all sorted. But ironically, the damage was probably done for me.
Yes.
But she'd open the cupboard when it was all over and she'd say, "Oh, there you are, hiding again." It was like it was some game that I was. So I grew up very confused about what love looked like.
Of course. Understand.
I can laugh about it now. But so when I went into the dark night of the soul, when I went into the black phase of the alchemist, I went into my unconscious. This is the boy I found.
Yes, of course.
And he was pretty angry, let me tell you. He was
scared.
So that began to explain what was going on in the adult me. So when I would be under pressure in a certain way or things triggered, we all know about triggers. When I was triggered in a certain way, this angry boy would rise up and I would despise him and I hated the way I was when I was angry and so on. And I was on a path of destruction in relationships and so forth. So I did have enough self-awareness to decide I wanted to fix it. And I was also, so then the alchemists talk about when you've found the problem, you've then got to go into what's called the white phase. So then they would add more chemicals and they would do more things with the crucible to keep the metaphor going here. And in the white phase, that's all about purifying the base matter. So you've got the base matter of who you are, which may be pretty black and ugly. So that's okay. That's fine. Don't shun it. It's important not to run away at this point.
Right.
You've got to hold on to that and embrace it. It's your greatest asset. This is what we're going to make gold out of.
Oh my.
And then Santiago, if you remember, when he's got nothing, he wanders up the hill to a place called the Crystal Shop, where it's full in the window. There's all this dirty, all these glasses, just literally glasses of glass crystal. And he asks the owner if he can work for a day just to make some money to buy some food. And the owner said, "Oh, I'm not sure." But Santiago just starts cleaning the crystal. So those of you that have got, you're getting the metaphor. So
absolutely,
he's going into the white phase of the cleansing of the self. When there's nothing else left, he has no choice. He has to cleanse what it is. And so he spends a year or nearly a year in the crystal shop, and it becomes very prosperous. And of course, the irony here, and this is what I love about the metaphor of The Alchemist, the original book, is that glass crystal contains lead.
That's right. That's right. Leaded glass, of course.
I rest my case.
Surprise, surprise.
So this is what I reveal in my book. But the book's packed with alchemy symbols, page after page after page.
Right.
And so I went through the same phase. I got involved in primal therapy, which is called rebirthing, the same thing that John Lennon did during the 70s. I was doing it in the UK. He went to Los Angeles and did it. And in the primal therapy, I was able to get in touch with that inner child, that angry inner child. And I was able to go back into my unconscious, go back in time. And I actually didn't even know they existed until I did that primal rebirthing work. So in the primal rebirthing work, I discovered my inner child, and I was surrounded by people who helped me embrace the child, give him a voice, vent his anger, and own. And I was able to own that child and allow that child then to direct me and guide me and become my new self. So what I often say to people, Christy, is that the Colm that you're looking at, sitting here talking to you now, is a result of me embracing that inner child.
Yes.
This was not what I was like before. This is the new me. It's the real me. It's not a different me. It's the me I was meant to be.
Yes.
And that's what the universe wants for each of us. That's the precious gift that unconditional love can bring into our lives. And then, of course, it spills over to everybody's benefit. Mm-hmm. Then we become able, it's really hard to give from nothing.
Yes.
But if you've allowed love to fill you with plenty, then you suddenly discover you've got a lot to offer and to give to other people. And that's been the story of my life since I went through that. So I did well. I went on a successful career, and then but when I met Paulo, and this is the great thing, one of the things I love, one of my favorite episodes of the whole of the Alchemist story is when he reaches an oasis. He decides, by the way, folks, to leave the crystal shop, and he's got some money in his pocket, and he's dressed in white, hence the metaphor. He's now dressed in white. He's been through the white stage, and he heads off to the oasis. The oasis is the turning point. It's the fount of plenty. It's the fount of life. It represents living water and so on. And this is the point where he almost gives up because he becomes content.
Right.
He actually meets a girl at the oasis. So lots of the bits of his life that were missing before, he's got some money, he's got somebody who he decides he thinks he loves, and he could just stop now.
Right.
Why take another risk? He could do, and then out of the blue, guess what? This guy arrives on a horseback. He's dressed in black. He's got a sharp sword. He's got a hawk on his shoulder, and he calls himself the Alchemist. And the Alchemist comes and he says, Santiago, you've got a choice to make right here. You could be content with what you've got, but guess what? Over the next few years, slowly and surely, you will become more and more discontent. You will become more and more disillusioned, more and more unhappy, and you will never know whether you really fulfilled your true destiny.
Right.
I, says the Alchemist, can take you to where your treasure is, but you've got to make the decision whether you want to go there or not. And that was Paulo for me. Paulo came into my life at the exact moment where I was in danger of having done all that work, having done the dark night of the soul, having done all that primal work, having become quite content. I was a fully rounded sort of human being now, thank goodness. People could put up with me finally. I made the decision, and I went out, and my book, The Secret of the Alchemist, is a result, and the work that I've been doing helping other people. So what the alchemist enabled Santiago to do was to become an alchemist himself. And at the very end of the book, they go off into the desert together, and they get ambushed again. They get captured, and the chieftain of the tribe that captures them says that if you don't give us your gold, well, we're going to take your gold, and we're going to kill you anyway. So this is the end, guys. You're dead. And the alchemist turns to the chieftain and says, well, that's a pity, because this young boy here, he's an alchemist, and he can turn himself into the wind if he wants to. And the chief goes, oh, really? Oh, that's okay, well, let's see him do it then. And if he doesn't do it, you're dead. And if he doesn't even try to do it, you're dead anyway. So, the only way that you're going to live now is if this boy becomes the wind. So I just have this vision of this little dark puddle of liquid appearing in the sand below Santiago. He was absolutely terrified. I mean, the story is absolutely.
Of course. Yes.
We need to reach that point, Christy,
right,
in our life. If we don't reach that point of terror on our journey of transformation, then we haven't lived to our fullest extent. Because that terror means that we're finally willing to face our real fears, because that's where the terror comes from.
And what was your moment of terror, Colm?
My biggest moment of terror was that I would just be a downright failure. That I wasn't up to mustard, that I didn't really have what it took, that my background, when you read my book, you'll see my background, the social economic background I came from was very poor post-war Britain. Most people in America particularly don't realize how poor we were. My family's house was bombed. We had nothing. We lived with my grandparents for many years because we lost everything. And I grew up in post-war, but we still had ration books when I was born. We still... You need stamps in a book to get petrol or chocolate or sugar or fruit. So that was the background. So within that environment, I had no expectation of ever living what was called by my peer group at the time, living above your station in life. You stay in your box because it's safe. You won't embarrass yourself. You won't go out of your comfort zone that we all belong to together. So there's this tribal comfort zone that I was a part of, and I was terrified of stepping out of that, but I did, big time. Big time. Yeah, like way out. So that was the big terror for me. But the original terror, of course, was facing the dragon, my inner dragon, that angry child who was my inner dragon. And the irony is, of course, that if we don't face that inner dragon, that dragon is going to burst into our adult existence uninvited, on a regular basis. Absolutely. Breathe fire, burn everything around us, and then go sculling back to where he came from again. So if we don't face that inner dragon. So I did, and in Santiago's case, he has to use everything that he's learned about alchemy up to that point.
Right.
And the alchemist, on his behalf, does something as well. So the alchemist invokes on his behalf in the universe, just as Paulo did for me, even though I didn't really know. I had no idea until I studied this afterwards that that's what Paulo did for me. An alchemist will invoke on your behalf that the universe will come to your aid and make what you want happen. And without wrecking the story, he does turn into the wind. He goes from being Santiago material to Santiago spiritual, And he finally arrives at his treasure, and I'm not going to tell you the ending because that would be completely wreck the book for you. That would be like me telling you, oh, have you seen that movie, and tell you what the spoiling ending is. So I won't do that. I'll let you discover where he found the treasure, but you'll love it because it's a great ending.
It is a beautiful book, and it's full of rich imagery and allegory, and it just touches your very soul when you read it. It is a lovely book. And then, of course, you write the secret of the alchemist as your personal journey, having to do with the same themes. And I can't help but notice if viewers are watching this on YouTube, of course, if you're listening on any other podcast app, you're going to miss this. But behind you, Colm, is the art for the cover of your book, The Secret of the Alchemist.
There's the book. That is the original. That is the original artwork. I must get it framed. No, it was. I commissioned it.
And so, what is the symbology? What is the meaning behind that image?
So, the stars represent the universe and everything in it. Here's the self, the divided self, the conscious and the unconscious. Here's the sycamore tree where Santiago has the dream. Here's the crystal house. Here's the cut glass. Here's the pyramids. Oh, and a beetle, a carib beetle figure. There's the moon. No. This is the sun itself. Here's the emerald tablet or the philosopher's stone, whichever you want it to be. And here is the hand that wrote all. The hand that wrote all is, in my understanding, unconditional love. Some people call it God, some people call it spirit, some people call it lots of different names. I like to think of it as in terms of its personality, which is love, because that really helps me to focus on what is the most important thing in life. So if you want me to quickly define what true empowerment is, sure. In my understanding of true empowerment, it is the ability to love unconditionally. So when people are not loving us, when people do bad stuff, when we see bad stuff, when our own darkness, our own shadow self comes to the fore, we need help, and that help is on hand in the form of unconditional love, and it's freely available, and all you've got to do is ask for unconditional love's assistance. Whatever your faith, even if you have no faith, if you can just make that request, my experience is that all the power of the universe, as Paulo says, when you follow your dream, when you ask for help to live the best life that you can live, all the power of the universe conspires to help make that happen. Stuff will happen. My life, and this is no exaggeration, my life is just one omen, synchronicity, coincidence, call it whatever you will. I fall over them, and my wife and I have a standing joke, which is, love's sense of humor.
Right.
You know it, Christy. You know what I'm talking about.
I do. I know exactly what you're talking about, Colm.
And I just scratch my head and I just go, I don't believe this. Do you want me to tell you one?
I would love that. Okay. I love these personal stories.
Okay, I'll tell you one. So you'll love this. So not long after I was doing the final revisions on my book. It took me 3 years to write, by the way.
Right.
I was working in marketing, still doing some marketing at the same time, but I was writing the book, and it just dawned on me one day, and I thought, oh gosh, what's Paulo going to say about my book? By the way, I'm number one in Amazon hot new releases for 20th century literary criticism.
Oh, well, that's a lofty title, Colm. Good for you.
Not bad for a guy who failed his high school English literature first time around.
Good.
Well, I was busy acting. I was on stage a lot, so I had no time to study. So anyway, I had a good time. Didn't pass my English literature, but I did go on and become a school teacher. So I guess I made up for it.
It all came out in the wash. Yes.
So I thought, oh no, what's Paulo? Oh dear.
Oh, I know.
What do I do? Do I write? I mean, what am I supposed to do? Do I write to him? Do I? Oh gosh, do I tweet him? What do I do? And I thought, no, just keep writing. It's okay, just keep writing. It'll unfold. It'll manifest itself. And so it was a couple of hours later I was writing, and my wife came to my office door, and she said she was clearing out some old photographs, boxes of old family photos, trying to prune them down into albums. You know what it's like, you collect them over the years.
Oh, absolutely.
And so she came to my door, and she was just laughing her head off, and she said, I don't know if this means anything to you, but you'll never guess what I've just found in this box. And I said, no, what? She said, well, this white envelope. And she handed me the white envelope. And I said, what's in this? She said, open it. So I opened it, and I've got it on my desk. I keep it on my desk, the photograph that's inside. So this is a special treat, everybody. I don't normally tell everybody this. So this is revealed on Christy's podcast world. Are you ready?
Oh, show me, please.
World exclusive.
Oh, world exclusive.
This was the restaurant.
Oh, that's beautiful.
In Sydney. Sydney is a beautiful place, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
This is the restaurant right here on the waterfront, called the Waterfront. And this was a snapshot taken by one of those tourist photographers who goes around tourist areas taking photographs and hoping you'll all buy a copy.
Oh, right. Look at that. Oh, my goodness.
Paulo Coelho.
That is the fateful dinner.
Younger me, my wife.
Oh, my goodness.
Paulo's wife, publicity manager, and our assistant publicity manager.
Wow, that is a gift.
Forgotten that I even had that photograph.
Wow.
I had not opened that envelope for 27 years.
Oh, Colm, that is so exciting. That's certainly a sign that he's giving his blessing.
So I just broke down laughing. I was so funny. I said, I said to my wife, you won't believe what I've just been thinking. She said, well, I wondered, what's Paulo going to think? And she said, well, if that smile's anything to go by, I think he's going to think it's a pretty good thing, don't you?
Oh my goodness.
So 2 weeks ago, I had my book was featured in the leading newspaper in England called the Daily Mail.
Yes, the Daily Mail. I read it often.
It's, if you Google Daily Mail, Colm Holland, Secret of the Alchemist, you'll see this article that they did on me. It's still online. And within 6 hours of the article appearing, Paulo Coelho posted it on his Facebook and on his Twitter posts. So thank you, Paulo.
Oh, thank you.
Paulo. Thank you.
Oh, my.
So
you're sending him a signed copy, right?
Yeah. The first thing he asked was, "Is there an ebook?" Because he was in lockdown and he wanted to read it like straight away.
Oh, of course, and it's available on audiobook at this point, and we're putting this the 29th of June, 2020. So it's available in audiobook at this point, and it fully releases the paperback and the ebook on the 30th of July, 31st of July.
Yeah, 1st of August in the US. You can pre-order now. Please, if you're interested, please go and pre-order, because that means that it becomes more visible to everybody else as well on Amazon. Amazon's got this algorithm that if people pre-order your book. So I've got the ebook, the paperback, and an audiobook. The audiobook is available on Google Play and Apple. And if you're really desperate and you can't wait till any of those things, I do have promotional copies, which I'm happy to sign and put in the mail to you on my website, colmholland.com. on my website. Thank you, Christy, for the
Yeah,
advertising
please.
opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. So again, the book is The Secret of the Alchemist, published by John Hunt Publishing, and their imprint O Books. And your website is Colm Holland. That's COLM Holland, like the country. And am I missing? Well, then there's also the website, thesecretofthealchemist.com.
Yeah, that really doesn't go. It just goes to Colm Holland. You're better just typing in Colm Holland. Yeah.
colmholland.com.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And you're available.
And please join please go to my Facebook page, because
wonderful.
I'm blogging. As there's dozens of blogs on there and on my website. I post a thought for the day every day. There's a encouraging message about love, and some of them have had over 2,000 likes in the last few weeks. So here's the thing, guys. The reason I wrote this book, and the reason why I recommend you read the original Alchemist if you've not read it, and also my book, is that you can experience unconditional love in your life in a transformative way if you're prepared to do the hard work, if you're prepared to allow love to change and embrace those things that we stubbornly hold on to out of fear. There is a transformed life. There is a different dimension that I certainly discovered, that I am so grateful to the universe and to love for revealing to me in my life. And I just count my blessings every day, and I'm so grateful.
You certainly are very blessed, Colm, truly blessed to have had such an impactful career, to have made such an impact on the world with promoting and publishing The Alchemist in English and doing your own transformational work. That's truly a blessing. And I'm just so happy that the universe has put me in your path. So thank you so much for joining me.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. So happy to have you. And we will put your website, your Facebook page, and all of those details in the show notes so that people can reach out to you and experience the secret of the alchemist for themselves. Great. Thank you.
Radiate Wellness is a community of holistic and alternative healers and consultants based in the Kansas City area, dedicated to helping you create spiritual, energetic, and physical well-being. To learn more about our practitioners, services, classes, and events, or to schedule an appointment, visit us at radiatewellnesscommunity.com.